Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Copilot Learning Hub live. Really live today because we have a live guest. All of you said, okay, you all said you love live guests, so we're going to start corralling more live guests to come and hang out with us in person. So, okay, today's topic, you're going to love this because every single one of you asked about this. Responsible AI. All of you at Microsoft are shipping Copilots, teaching us to build Copilots, doing all this Copilot-y stuff. But what about responsible AI, which is such a topic in the news, such a topic in tech, and such a topic for all of your companies? So I decided to pull the expertiest of the experts on responsible AI as it relates to Microsoft products and our customers' business. Please meet Pamela.
Thank you, Donna. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm a huge fan of you. So it's always great when we get to spend time with each other. And looking forward to talking about responsible AI and geeking out for a while, and also just kind of talking about if you're getting started in this space, where to go, because it can be overwhelming. This is a huge space. There's a lot of guidance out there. There's a lot of offering out there. And so really just wanted to spend this time just kind of giving that, where do you get started if you're just entering the space, or if you're actively already building products? What are some of those guidance you should start with first before you start building your product, or before you launch your product too?
Okay, so one thing you said that was super interesting, we were talking earlier as well, where Pamela works in the office of the CTO here at Microsoft called Octo. So they look after all of the products. They're not just fixated on just Word Copilot or Azure Copilot, whatever it is. They look after the gamut of all of our Copilot experiences, and you know how many there are, a lot. And one of the things you said that's really interesting is we have to think about RAI by design. If we're going to be, at any point, going to be thinking about adding AI capabilities to a product, we have to think about RAI from the design phase rather than 100%. Trying to retrofit, jam it in at the end.
100%. Right? It's very needed. And one of the things that we'll talk about is the REI standards.
Yes.
And so it's more and more important that you start at that design phase and be able to think through this while you're building the product, and things you can do right before you're deploying your product and after you deploy your product, what you need to do. And so it's very important to start early.
Yeah, I love that. And right now we're going to go through a whole bunch of tools that are probably going to be very relevant to you if you're building a product at Microsoft, with Microsoft, on Microsoft, or just in the world. All of these principles and fundamentals will apply to you and anything that you're working on. So you might be building something, or you could be like most of the world where you're using an AI product and you're trying to figure out, how can I maximize the usefulness of this AI product while still keeping in mind responsible AI principles. And it'll help you answer those questions like, why is this Copilot behaving this way? Why am I getting this kind of answer and not that kind of answer? So I'm very excited to dig deep into this.
Yes. Well, let's get started.
All right, let's
get started.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So we wanted to really kind of cover that journey of responsible AI, because I think most people, when they're thinking about the space, they're probably thinking about like ChatGPT and what happened, which was only like 2022. That was November, back in November.
18 months ago.
Yeah, it was it was pretty relevant. It was just, and it took the world by storm. And so wanted to showcase this journey because it started over 8 years ago when it comes to responsible AI. It actually started with Satya, where he came out and said, back in 2016, making a mention, hey, we really need to invest in this area. We really need to be human-centric in our approach with AI. This is before, kind of the big launches with ChatGPT, Copilots, or anything was in mind. And so he really kind of took this company to start focusing in this area. Started a research team called Ether here to really dig into kind of fairness, what we're doing in this space, starting to do sensitive uses. So these kind of products working with AI. If there's these different use cases, we need to be able to have a team in our Office of Responsible AI here at Microsoft that looks into it and spends more time holding their hands during the process, because it's a new space. So we really need to actually learn and grow and work very closely with the product teams. There was an AI red team that was developed as well that really looks into identifying risks when it comes to these AI systems, which is extremely important, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. And you can see the kind of journey that Microsoft has been on. And back in 2019, with the Office of Responsible AI started, they actually created what we call the Microsoft Responsible AI standards. Okay. And so this was before kind of our products that have been leveraging Gen AI, because it wasn't around at that time. No. But our products of AI before Gen AI.
So pre-Copilot, that used to be a thing. Yes. I know it's shocking, but there was an era before Copilot.
100%.
And we were thinking about responsible AI because we had AI before. We had Azure AI Studio. Yep. It used to exist. Azure Cognitive Services. You worked on AI on the edge, AI in IoT. These were all things like predictive AI has been around since 1950s, like a long time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I love that you've been working in this space for all this time, just building up to, oh, look, chaos spreads throughout the land, but we already have some frameworks, some systems to be able to build on. Which is awesome.
Yeah, the 6 principles have really, which we'll talk about in a moment, really held up.
Yes.
And so if you kind of continue along this journey, we continue to have an update in the standards because we really needed to continue to think through. We've started to understand more of like the different surfaces and guidance that we could be providing. We also had the Biden administration do the White House AI Act, which was huge, which was really focused on how do we start thinking about more innovations in responsible AI? How do we continue to think through what are these requirements, bring people together? And so Natasha Crampton, who's absolutely fantastic, she leads the Office of Responsible AI. It worked really closely with all of these different government bodies, the UN, and throughout different companies, tech companies, for us to all share information, share our learnings, and really get close with commitment on saying we really need to look into watermarking, we really need to look at best practices for red teaming, we need to understand what these risk surfaces are. And honestly, I think that's the most exciting part of all of this journey is the amount of people sharing information, coming together to really think through this and share their learnings. Because we're going to continue to evolve and grow here. And so towards, well, I guess the last year, you're seeing a lot more offerings here at Microsoft that actually helps customers, anyone who's building AI systems, that they can leverage to do evaluations and be able to do detections or groundedness detections. And we had a bunch of announcement at Build about these different offerings, which is fantastic.
Yes.
And then one of the things I thought was really great in this space is now you're seeing a lot more like tooling, open source tooling to help. Like for example, for AI red teaming, there's an open source tool called Pirate.
Which I just learned about, by the way.
It's really great.
Pirate.
Yeah. And so Pirate is PR or PIRIT. It's on GitHub, and so it's a automated kind of tooling you can use for red teaming in this space. So definitely check that out. We would love for you to contribute and be part of the community there. And so there's just been so much things that have happened in this last year. I just read an article from MIT Technical Review that talked about what all the tech companies were doing here, including Microsoft, and the commitments and how much in a short amount of time things got done. Because everything, as you know, all of this tech is advancing quickly, and it's very important that we think through how do we do innovation responsibly.
And the companies have to get together and agree 100%. On things, because we can't have one company saying we don't care about responsible AI at all, because customers ultimately are going to expect that there's some level of consistency.
100%.
It's like safety and security, right? You're not going to go use products that aren't secure. Like TFA is a standard. Everyone does it now. So I can imagine responsible AI being like that, where at first it's some brand new concept. Everyone's like, weird, I don't understand. But now it's just like an industry thing.
Exactly. And there's a lot of commitments on, like, we have a tech accord for the elections, making sure that we have an answer of not having deep fakes out there, having our products create deep fakes. Really, and that's a combination of Google and other tech companies with Microsoft, ensuring that we have, responsible AI that's being leveraged, especially during these elections, which it's pretty intense.
It's quite
right
the
now.
election year for lots of places. It's a very, very intense time because normal election years are stressful. This year's real stressful.
It is. I don't think anyone has been sleeping on this. Well, maybe we can jump into where you want. Where you can get started.
Let's do it. Okay.
So I get the question a lot of what you were proposing earlier of where do I get started? How does Microsoft do responsible AI with our own products? How can I leverage your learnings when I'm developing product? And so the place that I always tell people to start is this Microsoft Responsible AI Standards. It's really kind of the learnings from how to do product development and what to think through when it comes to responsible AI by design. And so you can find it online on our Microsoft site. And it's this huge document that goes through key principles. We'll dig into it in just a moment that cover like fairness, privacy and security, transparency, reliability, and safety, inclusivity, accountability, all really kind of key areas because it can be overwhelming for folks who are just starting going, oh, I need to think about this. I need to think about transparency. How do I tell my customers the limitations? What are some of the risks I need to look into? What all do I need to look at? And so
this is a big, meaty document. Just prepare yourself. So just like any standard, right? Standards are not known for being one-pagers. I've hollered at all of you about the accessibility standard. This is the same thing, where responsible AI standard, it's a big, chunky, meaty PDF that you're going to go get a second cup of coffee, and then you're going to go through it many times. And I think it's really important to sit down, kind of consume, and then really process what these mean in terms of context.
100%.
But happily, there's a bunch of more practical tools and things like that to help you do each one. But keep in mind that this is a big space. It's not like responsible AI is one thing. It's not just, okay, cool, it's not biased against X kind of people. That's not what it means. There's just so many elements to it.
100%, Donna. It's one thing, I fully agree. Get yourself a big pot of coffee before you go in the standards. It is a meaty document, but one thing I really appreciated, especially in this space, is that you have all of these kind of regulations that are starting. And granted, this standard was created before the regulations and continuing to be updated to help provide guidance. But it's really in the lens of you don't have to be a lawyer to understand this. You don't have to be a regulator. And that's what I really appreciate of it, because, when lots of times when a regulation comes or a new space, you're kind of, you need to actually put a lawyer hat on to read what's going.
You need legalese. But for us product-y people, we're like, what are these words?
Exactly. Well, how does this translate into product? And so this really has got that policy side, but still with the engineering hat on.
Which I like.
Yeah, I do too. Okay, so maybe let's go ahead and dig into that.
Let's do it.
So what we'll go through is kind of the 6 principles. And when you go through the standards doc, it'll have kind of these goals laid out of these different key areas within the principles. So we'll cover a few today, but we'll go through goals, some goals in each one of the principles, just to give an idea. We'll also dig into a little bit of like how our own product, being Copilot, thinks through this and leverages the standards. Because as kind of mentioned before, all of our products follow this standard. And we have a lot of our customers when building AI solutions also leverage this standard as well as a kind of an industry standard that they can, take apart and leverage in their own products.
So every product has to go through the process. And Pamela is part of this V team of people who help product teams review. Right? It's very much a train the trainer. It's here's standards, here's a process, let's help you go through it and a variety of scenarios. And that's something we really recommend you set up in your own organization, right? Whether you're using an AI tool or building one, it's really good to have this body, right,
you need
of people.
It. Yeah. You need that, and that's actually part of the standard of accountability as a principle. And so I love it. I love the lean in right there of the accountability part. Because you really do need folks and human oversight and control.
Human in the loop.
Yep. It's super important. You need to be able to have that human oversight and governance to be able to look after these systems. So that accountability, you need to be able to have what is kind of that governing board that goes. Maybe we can jump into the 6 principles.
Let's do it.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to go ahead and look at each one of the principles and then goals within these particular principles. And won't go through every single goal. It's a lot of goals within each one of the standards. But we'll cover some really key ones. We'll also dig into how being Copilot was leveraging these standards.
Practical examples.
Yes, super helpful. I need those.
I need those to ground in what does that mean in this context. Okay, I can't wait to, I don't know this story, by the way, so I'm very excited.
Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, so we're going to dig into transparency.
Perfect.
So this is all about how people might understand the product, misuse, incorrectly estimate the capabilities of the system, for you to really understand that and share that out to your customers as well. And so a couple key areas of note of some of the requirements here is disclosure of if your system is an AI, if you're having an AI interaction. And so if we look at Bing Copilot today, so let me go ahead and bring that up real quick. When we talk about transparency as one of the requirements and suggestions. So for this, you can see that it has a mention of AI-generated content. And so this might seem pretty straightforward, but every one of our products has this to really make sure that people don't think that they're interacting with a human or anything, that they know this is AI. And so that's just one straightforward example.
I like that. I've seen that in every Microsoft Copilot, like underneath the box of where things are generated, Word, Excel, Power, all of them. It says that. GitHub too. So everyone's following the principle. Good job, team.
That's exactly what we want. And then another area is really transparency notes for your product. And so we release these transparency notes. They really are a great way to communicate to your customers on pretty much what is the capabilities of the system, and what the limitations are, how we evaluated the system. And so we definitely recommend having some sort of transparency note or a way you're communicating to your customers what the intended uses were for your particular AI system.
Okay, that's great.
And so, go ahead.
No, so this all falls under that transparency principle. And transparency note is a tool by which to do it.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly. And just to kind of give an example here, this is actually a transparency note for the developer tools for Copilot and Business Central. And so
BC people.
You can see there's a glossary of terms, but you go into components. What are the system components or capabilities and components? It gives an example here that it highlights that this is a generated output. So you can see all the things that they were doing to really showcase that they are using the responsible AI standards and controls here. And I won't dig in too deeply on this, but definitely take some time to look at if you're leveraging some of our products, our Copilots, our models as well, to check out the transparency notes. That way you can get more information about the capabilities.
Love it.
Okay, and then next, principle that we could dig into is fairness. This is really that your AI system treats everyone equally. It seems pretty straightforward, but we have some really great guidance in that standards. So things that you should be thinking through is like, for example, if you have an AI system that does voice recognition, if it's only able to work well for maybe particularly men, and it doesn't work well for women, then you should really reconsider how you're designing your system to be able to make sure it's fair at the end of the day. And this also includes, another example is if you're leveraging a model that is doing a screening of a loan or anything like that. You don't want to have that loan use AI to make a decision based on if someone gets a loan or not. And your system or solution, AI solution, makes it harder for certain people to get loans.
We've heard that, right? Like people who put their address as a certain kind of zip code get denied their loan, or a certain kind of last name get denied loans.
Exactly.
We've heard of that. That's bad.
You definitely have seen that in the news multiple times. Super important to make sure you're minimizing any type of stereotyping, it being demeaning, and then erasing any outputs. That is just very key, very passionate in this area. Another principle is really reliability and safety at the end of the day. And as developers and product managers and anyone using these systems, you really kind of understand you want to keep that system going. You want to be able to make sure that you're monitoring, you're capturing feedback, you're making it easy for people to capture your feedback. So if you go to your Bing Copilot and go to the side, and we can show it in just a moment, you can see that it has a way to give feedback. And so it's really kind of like how you're developing other products. You want to have a way for your customers to give feedback and then be able to take that feedback and make sure it's appropriately incorporated into your system, keeping it running.
That is huge. So if you're building an AI product, make sure you've got a feedback mechanism. I mean, you should for anything, but especially AI, being able to capture prompt, response, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever it is, and then do something with it, right? Because it's this closed loop thing is so important, like closing the loop on this kind of feedback.
100%. The next one is privacy and security. So the Responsible AI Standards actually leverages a lot of the guidance already that's part of security and privacy. Just like Bing Copilot, your privacy matters. Like when you're building an AI system, you have to be mindful of the data that you're collecting or not collecting. And so that's actually really just already leveraging those standards we've already published already.
Which I love, because that's just basic security principles. And now we just have to know them extremely well, like in terms of the data, but also security of the product, ins and outs, et cetera, old-timey security principles. They still apply.
Yes, that's exactly what we want to hear. And then, and on top of it, you want to make sure your system that you're developing supports those, privacy and security requirements. The next one is really, is it inclusive? This is, is your system designed to be able to have anyone use it? You really want to make sure that you're following the Microsoft accessibility standards. I'm right next to Dona, who knows all about that, who's a leading expert in accessibility. And so it's really following those standards today for AI and making sure you're getting a diverse set of perspectives too, who are telling you and giving you feedback about your AI system. That is just so crucial.
This one, a thing that a lot of people don't realize is inclusiveness is, yes, people with disabilities, but also ageism. We bias against older people or younger people often in products, and especially in AI systems because, trained on the internet, shockingly. So it was really interesting that we have turned on the dial for, the anti-ageism thing as part of AI models and in products.
That's true,
so
yeah.
that one is a new thing for me in the last few years that's become like a real factor. And I liked seeing it included as part of the responsible AI standard.
It is definitely a principle, and these 6 principles have held up for all of these years, and we believe they'll continue to hold up because they're really key foundational principles.
This is just good product design. It just also applies to AI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
With a little bit more guidance on how to think through it with a kind of an AI
Right, with
lens.
like a generative thing, because generative AI generates, and sometimes it generates strange things. Let's try to prevent that as much as possible.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes.
And then one of the other principles is that accountability. And so when we have a product here at Microsoft, our AI system that's being built, we have each one of them go through an impact assessment. And we actually publish our impact assessment guidance online, which is fantastic, that you can leverage at your own company when you're building a product. But really what it is for you kind of, if you're a product manager, a developer, thinking through what are the attendant uses. This is a way for you to write down and brainstorm potential risk areas.
Yes.
So it's really kind of like when you do a product spec, I kind of think of the impact assessment a little bit like that as an extension of your product spec, but with a REI lens.
Yes, I like that a lot. And I like the fact that there are templates provided here where you could do that for your products if you're going to build one.
Yeah.
And I think even if you're building a product that's internal to your company, it's a very good practice to be able to do that, because we do this for internal products as well as external ones.
And it's been really beneficial as like a product manager to go through an impact assessment, because it really forces you to start thinking about the types of risk that your system can do. And it goes back to that responsible by design.
Yes.
And when you spend time actually doing the thought exercise and really understanding what your the tenant uses are, but what can happen when folks are using your technology outside of those attendant uses, it really helps on kind of how can you start building your product responsibly.
It's an inclusive design principle, actually, right? Like, what are the intended uses for this product, and what are the unintended ways this product could be used? And just doing that thought exercise of that second question is always very interesting. Right?
It really is.
Yeah. How can you unintentionally exclude people without meaning to? It was never your intention, but it happens because of X, Y, and Z reason, which happens to all of us.
100%.
Yeah. I think just being thoughtful about it and knowing that information and writing it down.
So every one of our products goes through that exercise, and it's just extremely valuable. So I highly recommend looking into that impact assessment. It's on the same site as you find the responsible standards, and really taking a look and using that as an extension for you building products.
We're like, and that is all of them.
Yes.
It sounds like a lot, and it is, but I feel each one is very different than the others. It's not like here's 6 standards, they're kind of the same. No, you need different skill sets for each of these.
You really do.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend digging into these. We only covered like a few goals in each one of these principles, but definitely it really, truly just puts you in kind of a different mindset. And then you feel a little bit more, okay, I'm ready to start innovating with responsibility in mind.
Yes.
So we're going to go ahead and dig into, now that you have these standards, you kind of understand them, how do you do that kind of implementation of your product? So
how do you do the thing now? Now you know what they are. How do you do the thing?
Exactly. And so we just wanted to kind of showcase the pipeline that we use here at Microsoft that we have found extremely helpful when we're releasing a product or building a product here. And so that policy side that we just talked about, the standards, kind of looking at, really identifying the doing those impact assessments that was just mentioned, really identifying potential risk areas. You then kind of move into the AI red team. And so it's a little bit different than kind of your traditional red teaming, but really the AI red teaming is you're manually and sometimes you could do this with automated tooling or leverage the Pirate tooling, the open source project that we mentioned earlier, to manually probe for risk.
Yeah.
And so this is, digging in, looking and doing kind of your really kind of stress testing at the end of the day, seeing different types of risk, like, am I going to find this AI system potentially could do jailbreaks?
Yep.
Do I need to think through, can it produce harmful content?
Right.
Kind of violence or sexual or, think
Poison.
through those.
Make sure your Copilot is not generating poisonous recipes.
Oh my gosh,
I know. That was a real thing I saw. It was very strange.
It was, I was just going to say this. I saw that as well.
Like, oh no.
Like during Red Tea. And just kind of privacy harms as well, or even copyright. I know when we talk about risk, we really kind of jump into kind of the, risk when it comes to violence and those type of things. But copyright is the other area. You want to make sure that you're not violating IP of another company. And so this red team is just there to really identify those risks. And the next step is to measure it at scale.
Right.
This is really to try to understand, okay, if I am making this AI system, what kind of thresholds, how many times does it show, actually produce, harmful content, or 0%? Like you really need to kind of understand that, especially at scale, because you're going to have all different types of users use your system. So if you're only testing on like a few prompts, people are a lot more creative.
Yeah.
And so it's super important to do this at scale.
I think that is the most important one, the measuring, where you're figuring out what your tolerance for risk is, right? For each of these. You're saying like, okay, we get weird content 10% of the time. Is that good? Is that bad? It's up to you. It's up to you, your business, right?
Exactly.
It's like anything where how much percentage of the time does this need to work? If you're doing medical stuff, probably it should be higher than if you're doing like, some image generation thing, which might be for something creative, because that can be a lot more random than something that needs to be super, super precise. So
exactly. And you're going to know your product in and out. There's going to be classifiers that you might use versus others depending on what your needs are and your solution. The next part is really mitigation and what you're doing here. So going back to the Bing Copilot, when we're kind of talking about measurement and mitigation, and we have this public online as well. So one of the things that Bing has done for their Copilot is really use AI-based classifiers and meta prompting to mitigate some potential risk and misuse. So kind of example of this, we know that these large language models may produce, kind of not appropriate content. And that can lead to risk and misuse. And so examples of this, you could, do an output related to a graphic content or IP, kind of what we were talking about before. And so they have these classifiers to go ahead and flag different types of potential harmful content, with these, whenever someone's typing in. And then these flags lead to potential mitigations, depending on what the flag is. And making sure when it is flagged that it doesn't generate content to the user. So if you're trying to generate how to make poison, I liked your
how to make poison. You should probably get a thing that says no.
Exactly.
I know. Don't give them the answer and erase it. No.
Exactly. The things that we have written down and
our
typed
Copilot
to test.
prompts are really sketchy, just so you know.
We're doing the work for you.
Yes. And if you're doing this kind of work in your company, congratulations. You're now a red teamer. Come join us, right? Because if you have real sketchy prompts and you're like, dear IT, please do not fire me. I'm testing this.
It's important.
Yes, exactly.
And so So they already have classifiers on there. They have that they're leveraging to prevent that and create flags and do mitigations. They also are using meta prompting, which involves giving instructions to the model to guide its behavior, including systems that behaves in accordance to our standards that we're talking about, our end user expectations. So, for example, making sure that you're communicating the user's choice of language at the end of the day, things like that. And so that's how Bing is one out of many things that they're doing, but giving an example of some mitigations and how they're doing that. And then you're going to want to review.
Yes.
This is a super important because there's so many different things. It's important to review to ensure that these standards have been met. At the end of the day, we recommend having a governing body or having, I would say, just folks that are doing human oversight to make sure that these checks and standards have been met.
With different kinds of people.
100%.
Right? Different kinds of people. And people who look at different things. Like, everyone thinks of responsible AI as, okay, we're going to look at race and gender. Like, that is an element. But making sure all of your AI things have like a label that says AI generated, that should just be someone's job. Yeah. Right? And making sure you're not, giving poison recipes, that should be someone's job. And I found it so valuable when teams have this kind of diverse point of view coming together to say, this feels harmful. Another person might be like, why? Yeah. Right? It's good really to have that tension.
And you need that. There's not one person that, I have not met this person yet, that can, digest everything and because we all have our different perspectives too.
And lived experiences.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then the last thing is really operate. So you're not just done once it's deployed in the world. Just like anytime you build a product, you should have incident response. You should be monitoring. You should be doing abuse monitoring, and logging, and those different things that it's really important. Where if someone finds something, they give a feedback, and there's an incident, you can respond quickly, and that you're not trying to figure out what to do when it happens. Having a playbook ready to go, a plan, it's just extremely needed. And so that policy to implementation pipeline, it's a journey. It's worth every part of this journey for the pipeline. And you're going to have different types of experts who are coming in to working together to make sure that your product is responsible at the end of the day.
And it's not a silver bullet. You can think of it like a car or an airplane. You've got seatbelts, you've got airbags, you've got speed limits, you've got, this height of seat. You've got a lot of things in place to keep you as safe as possible, right, in the event of a situation. Exactly. And it is not a silver bullet, one size fits all.
100%. Yeah.
And I think that's why every organization, especially in big orgs, even like smaller units, need to create their own responsible AI body. Focusing on one of these will be more important than others for the product, the tool you use, right? Yeah. Like if your thing can't generate images, some of these will be less relevant. If your thing can generate images, you have new problems, right?
Exactly.
So,
and I just that call out of just having that body or a group of people where they're digging in this day in, day out to help different teams or people building products to kind of understand and be able to bounce questions on and, hold your hand. I think it's important. And so one of the other kind of call outs on this is that Microsoft has invested a lot of having these offerings from Azure AI Studio has offerings for content safety. We just announced a bunch in the build. And so definitely recommend, we'll link some of those for folks to check out. And so definitely it's moving quickly and we're trying to take the tools that we use here at Microsoft, think through it and make that available for customers and so we really want to make responsible AI easier for everyone.
Yeah, it should not be this huge impossible thing that one person in your company takes on. It should be something that just like any other hub and spoke situation, have a leader, have them have a governing body, and every product team who's building AI products or doing stuff with AI products, there should be champs and champs networks. And a big part is training the trainer, right? Because you're right now training all these trainers, and all of you trainers should go out there, use all of these tools to go train people in your org.
Yeah, and we have a AI community that looks into responsible AI, sharing the learnings. All of us coming together and sharing if we find a new jailbreak or anything. We should be all coming together in this space.
Absolutely. Fascinating, huh? I know. See, that's why you got her here, not me explaining. Pamela, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a fascinating conversation, extremely relevant. If you're doing anything with AI and copilots, please watch this episode a few different times, and more importantly, implement in your organization. Yep.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time on Copilot Learning Hub.